Hey Rohit,
Hey Vidya.
hey Arvind, hey Divakar.
All right, so I think we'll give it a minute and we can start at 10:01. All right, so if we can get started. Good morning, everyone, and good evening, good afternoon, wherever you're joining from. Welcome to Acceldata's first webinar. We started in 2018, but this is our first webinar. So, admittedly, we are a little late in announcing and giving our message to the world. The objective for today is to go over what is the role of observability in getting extremely successful with enterprise analytics and AI. And in doing that, or in helping me sort of elaborate on that point today, we have a distinguished panel, which includes the following people. We have Divakar Goel, who's the Chief Data Officer at GE and a thought leader in the industry, and he'll talk about himself as we go along. We've got Vidya Raman, who is the principal and the investor at Sorensen Ventures. She also is a board observer at Acceldata. And we've got Arvind Jayaprakash, who is the head of platforms and infrastructure. He's an engineering leader at Inmobi, and he's going to be talking about his own experiences, about what the role of observability is, and a little bit about how big the infrastructure at Inmobi is. What do they do with data? So the framework that we're going to use today is to sort of go ahead and outline what observability for data means. What does it specifically means for enterprise analytics and AI? What is it? Why is it different from standard observability platforms that we oftentimes encounter in the market and we come across? And then subsequently, we'll just head off in a panel discussion with real-time examples with the panel that we have here. So without wasting any more time, we have an agenda here, and the agenda is essentially, what is data observability? We'll probably do a 5-minute demo. We'll talk about how data observability has helped at GE, and then follow it up with a panel discussion. From a logistics point of view, just want to make sure that we are aware that please leave your questions in the chat section, and we'll come back and address them as we go along. And hopefully we'll probably spend about 10 minutes over there. So without any more time wasted on these things, I'll just kick it off. What is really data observability? My experience has been largely in the data world for the last 10 plus years. My most recent job before starting Acceldata was at Hortonworks. And one of the key things that the indisputable fact that I saw while I was at Hortonworks was essentially that every company was trying to become data driven, and every company was trying to extract more information from the amount of data that they collect and process at any given point in time. And the biggest challenge that they were facing was that while they were attempting to solve some really sophisticated use cases and try to get really better as a business with the amount of data, or trying to generate the insights from the data that they had already collected, it was a really hard challenge for them. Now, the other thing which also was happening in parallel, which was also remarkable for us to see, was that most of the breakthrough technology was coming through open source and open core platforms. Gone were the days where you could figure out everything by just using one Oracle database. It was really tough for customers to fulfill all the use cases and the requirements of an enterprise using just an Oracle database. So what really happened was in many ways a Cambrian explosion of some sorts, where now enterprises are not dealing with just one database or one data system, but instead they are having to manage, probably in the orders of tens of databases and systems. And what it does, therefore, is that it puts an inordinate amount of pressure on the platform teams, the engineering teams, and the associated outcomes generally are found to be misaligned, because while the customers would or the enterprises would ideally like to focus on the business use cases and the benefits, unfortunately they're still struggling with the first order problems, which is a lot of figuring out of the technology itself. And the effect of that shows up later in the cycle, which essentially goes to point that the data systems and the business strategies, they are no longer aligned. And the reason, of course, as I outlined earlier, is because they're having to deal with multiple technologies, they're dealing with data at rest, data in motion, and the scale, month on month, day by day, is continuously increasing. It's actually not going to get any simpler for the enterprises. So what needs to be done? That was the question that we asked ourselves. And from my experience of working on this open source project called Ambari, which was essentially supposed to be the de facto tool and platform for managing large-scale Hadoop on-premise data clusters. It was deployed at about 2,500 enterprises, managing about 10,000 clusters worldwide. We figured that while that is going to do a great job at solving some problems for one technology stack, it was never going to be enough for the gamut or the myriad of technologies that companies are going to use, not just today, but also in the future. How do you solve that? Because there are some really deep concerns that enterprises need answers for in real time. So we started with, and this is our definition, our view of the ideal data observability platform. What should the observability platform do? I think what it should do is essentially comprehensively monitor the application health, identify and troubleshoot problems when things go wrong, which is fairly standard. Everybody expects that. I think all of us are pretty used to the service monitoring world, and we also understand that when something goes wrong, you should get a notification, you should get an alert, you should have a troubleshooting mechanism, and therefore here is the roll call or here's the runbook. But what is really different about data observability as compared to the rest of the observability systems is that here you're not dealing with a web request or you're not dealing with a request response system. It's very, very different in the sense that for enterprise practitioner, a platform team, a data team, a business team, to figure out what is going wrong, you need actually correlated metrics. And those, the correlated metrics have to be synthesized across multiple layers. So when you are processing data, when you're collecting data in the enterprise, there are these signals which come from multiple layers. It comes from the infrastructure, it comes from the application, it comes from data itself, because data also needs some amount of reliability. When you put all of these together, it gives you a comprehensive view of the overall system. Because if you're just getting a signal about a service being up or not, that is not sufficient. It is necessary, but it is not sufficient to tell you what the root cause of the problem could be. And when you need more details, it clearly means that there has to be a system which has the ability to both collect and to sort of synthesize more and more data from across these different layers. The other thing that we figured out was that, as enterprises moved along their data journey, different concerns or different aspects of observability became more and more important. To begin with, most of the enterprises are struggling with how to implement this platform, how to successfully sort of experiment and scale that success radically with one or two platforms, and then how do you expand it to the rest of the systems. But as they go along, they figure out that it is also important to have reliability of the data that they're going to use as basis for their business decisions. And of course, over a period of time, the SLOs become really critical because we running reliably. And therefore, the way that we sort of envision the observability stack for the future, for the analytics and AI stack, and which is our North Star, is to essentially provide all of these different, or to address all of these different concerns in a single unified system, in a single unified interface. Whether it is monitoring and troubleshooting from a reliability and monitoring perspective of just the compute, or whether it is automated data quality and getting data reliable and automatically validated, or whether it is figuring out how many times did the credit card fraud check algorithm run today in a credit card company, and how bad or how good that business workflow looks like. So all of that needs to be integrated and put together in front of the team that is